And we are live. Welcome to a very impromptu episode of Insurrection with Brenton Lengel, which is now apparently back. I tried to retire. I toyed with the idea of doing it. Now I'm actually doing it, and I'm happy that you guys made it happen. You forced my hand. Well, the world made it happen and forced my hand. So Insurrection is the only podcast where we get you all the seditious information that you need to function in today's increasingly crazy world. I can't believe I remember that because I have not spoken that intro since 2014. My name is Brenton Lengel. I am a writer. I'm an anarchist and a former activist with Occupy Wall Street and the Youth International Party. And I am here talking with Erik Boyd. Now, Erik, you and I have been friends for a number of years. We've known each other sort of online through the whole left book thing and a number of like anarchist communities and groups. And, I probably called you a shit fucker at some point. But
I'm a little. You're probably a little to the left of me. I guess I'm like a mutualist in your.
Yeah, you're a mutualist. I kind of lean communist just because I don't like
a little bit closer your direction though over the years. So.
Well, that's great. I don't like to stride the fence. I like to take a very bold position where few people are, and most folks just think I'm crazy, and they're probably half right. So anyway, Erik, this came down because as the audience can see, your face is messed up right now. Now, why don't you give me the background on the rally and what happened and why we are streaming together right now?
Sure. How far should I go back? Because I could go all the way back to my childhood with this one.
Why don't you just tell us about like the rally, why you were there, what you expected to happen, and what actually happened?
Yeah. So this rally started with. Every Friday we've been counter protesting Trump supporters. They started rallying, I want to say back in like June, every Friday, and one day.
Super annoying, by the way. You just get up there every Friday and rally for Trump. Dude, get a fucking life.
Well, no, the funny thing is they're there at like 1 p.m. and they're telling us to get jobs.
Wait, what?
It's a bunch of old retired dudes for the most part. But like, so I do need to go back. I wasn't joking when I said I need to go back to my childhood here because this is a town I grew up in.
Yeah, and what's the town?
It's called Tujunga. Well, it's like kind of a two. If you go further, I'm bad with directions. Think west. It's Sunland, and then the next town over is Tujunga. The part that we were rallying in was Tujunga. I grew up in Sunland, but I grew up with a lot of various white supremacists, and so like I know kids that I grew up with who like openly brandish hats that they show on Facebook that have swastikas on them. I have a friend of mine in high school was walking down the main boulevard and got punched in the back of the head for the crime of being black on the main boulevard there. And we showed up to school 2 weeks later, and the guy that hit him started a race riot, just started yelling F N-words and white power, and a bunch of black people jumped him. And here's the crazy thing, him and his, some of his boys were Latino. So there's a big like Latino white supremacist presence in this area.
There is a big Latino white. Okay, so that's good to know, because like they were saying that this was a Latinos for Trump.
So I don't know. Like, so that the rally itself has been organized there every week, and I think that the contingent that brought out bigger numbers was Latinos for Trump. I don't think any of those guys were particularly, members of hate groups, but. The reason I started coming out was because on Juneteenth, we had they decided not to cancel their counter protest, their rally. I'm sorry. So okay, we're going to counter protest you guys.
Yeah, because you're being a dick and rallying on Juneteenth.
Right. And so some
Juneteenth, by the way, just for those who may not know, Juneteenth being the celebration of African American emancipation.
Yeah, like there were 2 years after slavery that in the city of Galveston, Texas, was it? Where they were, I think that's what it was. I think it was like Galveston, Texas, where 2 years they were not informed that Lincoln had freed the slaves.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. So that's horrible, but it also just kind of funny where they're just like, don't tell them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. So continue.
So, um, so it was Juneteenth, and I had they had put out a flyer online, and I saw someone commenting on that flyer, speaking some hateful things, for the counter protest. Some dude and was just randomly posting some hateful stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna go on this guy's page because I know my town and I know what kind of crap goes down. And sure enough, he's like sitting here going back and forth on one of his pictures with a friend. His friend, by the way, whose last name is Covarrubias, so there's another example of Latino white supremacy, saying something like 1488 racial loyalty, brother. And so you maybe want to
yeah. So 1488, it's a common white supremacist slang, stands for the 14 words we must secure, and I'm not going to say the rest of it because it's disgusting and kind of creepy, because I am the father of a quote unquote white child, and I don't want these people anywhere around my son. They fuck up and destroy everything they touch. So stay away from our babies. From all white people to all fucking neo-Nazis, stay the fuck away from our babies. Now, but yeah, and then the 88 is Heil Hitler. So when you see someone post 1488, they're saying the 14 words and Heil Hitler.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm like, I know who we're dealing with, and so I was a football player, and I have a lot of friends who are big dudes, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna call my buddy who's like 6'6".
Nice.
And gigantic, and me and him have been kind of leading the protests since. And so at this particular rally, he was there before I was, and I showed up a little bit late because I had some work to do. And when I got there, it was like immediately, and like I said, we've been there each week. They decided to come to the side that we're on and confront us.
Okay, so they walked.
Now they've been getting more and more bold each week, but they were like particularly bold this week.
Yeah,
and
so they came over and invaded your space. You did not go over and invade their space.
Yeah, let's be clear. They were there at 1 p.m. and we got there at like 4:30. But they knew we were coming because we've been coming each week, and we had a very peaceful protest the week before, dancing, music, all sorts of stuff. I have a lot of folks who are very uncomfortable with the violence, and I'm not a fan of violence either. I don't want that crap to happen. I didn't throw a single punch.
Yeah, you were, if I'm not mistaken, you were trying to break up a fight when you were attacked by someone you were not fighting, that you didn't even see.
I didn't throw a single punch. I was pushing people away from people, and my whole goal there is to try to stop people from getting hurt.
Yeah.
So the individual, well, back to where I was. My friend was there. We're on the front lines. These guys have decided to confront us. There are a number of people who we see there. I mean, so I'm working with some folks who are identifying people, and we already know like about some specific hate groups that are there. I've had a guy targeting me that has my name and information. I mean, he's just like going on Facebook and finding me and shit. And this guy who's a member of Atomwaffen, for those of you who don't know, that's like literally the most violent neo-Nazi.
Yeah. Atomwaffen, guys, for those of you, if you are not familiar with Atomwaffen, look them up. Atomwaffen is the group that had one of their members become a jihadist after converting to Islam. And thank God he did, because then he turned around and killed his other members of Atomwaffen, and they were planning to set off bombs in freaking Florida. And they had the equipment and stuff. So this is Atomwaffen, that is straight up almost they're not coordinated, but that's the white equivalent of Al Qaeda. And there's an Atomwaffen guy at this protest, is what you're telling me.
Yep. Yeah, we have a list of like all the hate groups that are involved. There was a guy that's been there twice now who was a Proud Boy. There's video of him like just using his motorcycle gloves and assaulting people with them, using them as brass knuckles. And literally just steps off a bus, takes about a 3-second conversation with some 50-something-year-old dude and just punches the guy. Also spraying bear mace on crowds, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
There's a guy there who was wearing a ski mask. There's a local hate group called the San Fernando Valley Peckerwoods. And we went to high school with members of that group. In fact, I have a kid. I call him a kid. He's an adult now, but his his older brother's a year older than me, and I used to skateboard with him. They're all members of hate groups. This is back before I knew what was going on. And I used to be a conservative too, so I mean, like I don't know that I would have really known what that even meant and cared. I like to think I would have, because I don't like hate and I never did. But yeah, I mean, when we were kids, I used to hang out with this guy's older brother, and he started getting into like little stupid, street gangs, and eventually like joined this group. And so I saw the San Fernando, the guy who I'm talking about is also the guy who hit me. I watched him on the video hit me, wearing a ski mask, had a shirt on that said on the front, "Free commie helicopter rides."
Oh my God, you idiots! Which is a reference to Augusto Pinochet, the fascist dictator of Chile, who famously never actually threw a single communist out of a helicopter.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he murdered communists and he tortured, political dissidents and stuff. But the ones that he murdered from the helicopter were actually military officers that opposed him. So that's actually they are glorifying the killing of soldiers, not the killing of communists. But they don't know it because they're a freaking idiot, and all they care about is that this guy dropped he dropped people I assume I don't like out of helicopters.
Right.
Funniest bit too, because that meme was popular with Nazis and ANCAPs, and I've always said, like, leave it to anarcho-capitalists to glorify the single most economically inefficient method of killing someone. Yep. Like, helicopters are expensive to keep in the air, man.
Yeah, it had that on the front of the shirt, and on the back of the shirt it said "Fuck Antifa." And that guy was flashing a San Fernando Valley Peckerwoods tattoo, and I'm not saying I know for a fact it was the guy
that you're thinking of.
Yeah, but like that tattoo, granted there are other people that are in the same gang, and I'm sure they could probably get their tattoo the same way, but it looked very similar to the one that I've seen the other guy flash.
So this guy was a gang member, and he was also now what I found interesting is it had to have been hot that day. It's like, I'm in New York, and it's hot as hell up here, but like,
and our area of California, we're just outside LA. It's in like the San Fernando Valley. Like, well, it's just outside the San Fernando Valley, and it's like normally about 10 degrees hotter than the rest of LA. So.
Okay, yeah. So and he showed up in a black ski mask, not a COVID mask, a black ski mask. Because I've heard people claiming this thing hit in some of the forums that I talk, like some conservatives showed up and claimed that these were just Latinos protesting the closure of churches from COVID. Like, and I'm like, yeah, freaking
decided to go to a local church anyways and open up this big congregation, so that's locally as well. So,
yeah.
But
yeah, this freaking guy clearly shows up with a ski mask, with a skateboard, and that shirt. He's not some Latino churchgoer.
No, absolutely not. And yeah, I mean that's just a couple of guys that were out there. There's another, like I said, there was a Proud Boy out there who he actually has also like came close to assaulting a few of our members as well. There are folks that have been out that have been identified as having like worked with people in the KKK. The town itself used to be patrolled by bikers. I think there was some Hell's Angels presence, but I've heard a lot of things about like another gang being more predominant. And they literally, like, if you went, because like Rodney King beating happened like down the street from me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like that was where I grew up, and the KKK headquarters in the area were known to be like in that town, and then like it was like just kind of like a known fact that Tujunga is this, the safest neighborhood in LA, or one of the safer neighborhoods in LA, and you ask any cop why, they tell you, yeah, it's because you got Hell's Angels and other biker gangs patrolling the area, and they keep the undesirables out.
Undesirables meaning?
You know the deal. It's like people who are not of our ilk, right?
Oh, geez. So essentially, you've got a real serious issue with a white supremacist town, and it seems like there's multiple gangs and a lot of gang activity.
Yeah, I mean that the biker gangs haven't been a presence in a while, but I will tell you, I've seen recent community posts on Facebook. There's people like, God, I wish those biker gangs were back so they could drive these undesirables out of town. And like, it's
and of course, by undesirables, it seems that they just mean brown people.
Yeah, brown people and usually people who protect brown people.
Yeah. So let's get into this thing. So these people, they came across from their side to your counter protest,
Right.
and like, when did you start to notice that things were getting dangerous?
As soon as I showed up there, I mean, I saw the guy in the ski mask and the Pinochet shirt, and I was just like, okay, stupid things are about to go down today. Stupid. Yeah. I know it. Just based on that. There's also a kid there who, God, he sounds like and looks like he probably spends most of his time like on the computer searching, stuff related to socialism and capitalism. And he's got his Oath Keeper's flag. He could not possibly actually be an Oath Keeper. He's like this.
He's like 15 or something.
He's not that young. I think he's overage, but yeah, I mean, he's just scared. And like, literally, I'm standing there and some girl's like, you don't even know what socialism is. And he started railing off the dictionary definition of socialism while we're in front lines at a protest.
Burn all dictionary. I hate the freaking dictionary
right now. What are you doing not in your basement right now is what I was wondering,
What are you doing not arguing with us on Facebook?
Exactly.
Well, point out.
Right? Go back to Facebook and start arguing with us there. You're going to get hurt. And that's basically what happened, because what he did is he was carrying some pepper spray, and really where things started. So, we're there, and we're starting to get surrounded because we're outnumbered. And we got some black bloc folks that work with us a little bit. And they showed up a little bit late because just some basics. I shouldn't get into too much of that, but they showed up a little bit late, and they started surrounding from the back end. And, it was like a thing where they were doing that because it was clear that they were already taking an aggressive posture, and they're like, okay, we need to have a show of dominance here. We need to let them know, like, hey, like, you're not going to because they were literally starting to surround us. They were going to like do something, right? And so we started advancing. No one's touched yet, right? No one's been pushed. No one's been hit. It's just, I mean, it's been aggressive, and now we're just showing them like, hey, like, we're not going to stand here and let you push us around.
They came into your space, and then you started advancing back to, show them that you're not going to allow that advance to continue.
Right. Yeah, and so, my buddy and I are like up on the front lines, stopping anybody from getting in the way, getting in each other's faces, and we're like, all right, if we're gonna, if someone's gonna take a punch, it's gonna be us, and other things.
You're a big dude, and you're in good shape, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a coach. I've been coaching fitness and weightlifting for a little while now. I have a football background, so I'm like, I weigh well over 200 pounds. My buddy weighs well over 250. So, yeah. So we're like, hey, I'm gonna stand here on the front lines, and so this little kid gets scared, and I call him a little kid. He's, as far as I understand, he is over 18, but either way, he gets scared. No one's touched him, but he gets scared and starts pepper spraying people. Pepper sprays my friend right in the eyes and then turns it to me. So I got my football skills out and I tackled him so that he couldn't pepper spray any more people. That, of course, led to me getting punched in the back of the head by Mr. Ski Mask guy.
Hang on, you froze. Hang on, you froze on me right there.
Okay.
So you got punched in the back of the head by Mr. Ski Mask guy. That's the last thing I heard.
Yeah. So, and then it just escalated from there. Like, more people started jumping in, and just turned into a giant brawl. Someone, I'll say, I don't want to say too much. It wasn't anything illegal, but it was like a good move. Someone from our side threw a smoke bomb.
That was what I saw in the video, the smoke. So that came from you guys, okay?
Right. That came from one of our folks, and that caused everybody to split, and that caused a temporary stoppage in the fighting. But it just started right back up again, and like one of the Trumpers tried to turn into a ninja and started kicking people, and yeah, I mean, it was all kinds of crazy.
From my look, and I'm a Shodan in Kyokushin karate. From what I could tell, no one at that area knew had any
No, of course
training or
not.
had any idea how to fight.
No, absolutely not.
Which, to tell you the truth, is it can be very dangerous because a
Right.
completely untrained person can just do something freaking insane and really injure themselves or someone else.
Yeah, I don't pretend to be like Mr. Fight guy. I don't get into fights. I try to avoid getting into fights. I haven't been in a fight since high school. So
yeah, which is good. Anybody that knows anything, like even Joe Rogan, I remember he, because he actually knows what fighting is like. Because he's done it, and he's a huge martial arts nerd. It's something we would probably, if we ever talked, like we would geek out about. He said specifically to Gavin McInnes,
about, like trans people, but that's a different story.
Yeah, yeah, I'm 100% against his position on trans people, but he said to the guy who founded the Proud Boys that he was pointing out how insane the fact that they were saying it's okay to engage in violence is, and what that's going to lead to. And he's 100% right in speaking from a place of knowledge where, as Gavin McInnes and most of these Proud Boy people, they have no idea what they're even getting into.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, the Proud Boy that was there got beat to crap.
Yeah.
But anyway,
they do that thing where they name breakfast cereals while their friends like wail at, but like having done a 15-man kumite, it's one of the funniest freaking things I've ever seen to see the Proud Boys be like, yeah, I'm a badass, I remembered breakfast cereals.
Yeah, I mean, he was by himself, so it didn't seem like it was funny too. Cause I'm like, we've literally watched videos of this guy assaulting people, and he's like, after my friend is like literally carrying him off to get medical attention. By the way,
good. I'm glad.
Yeah, he was like literally like, I'm just here to I'm all for the conversation. We literally watched a video of you having a 3-second conversation and punching someone.
Yeah,
it's like these guys lie. And so it's like there's no point in having conversations with these people. I mean, let me be clear. Like, both of my parents are Trump supporters, and I've actually like, you'll look at the comments on my post. Like, my mom's actually in there saying, I've seen what's gone on, and it's taken a while. It's taken a while for me to like get her to that place.
Yeah.
But it's like, so there are people that can be reasoned with, but like, these guys are not there for reason. These guys are there for fists.
Yeah. These are people that wanted to do violence before, and Trump and the situation has given them an excuse to start up and to attempt to attack, suppress, and if you give them long enough, I think probably kill their political enemies, or the people that they imagine are their political enemies.
And this particular week, I think they felt embarrassed because we outlasted them, and there were like three of the hate group members that stayed until the end, and like we just kind of laughed them off.
Yeah.
And I think that was retaliation for that.
Mm-hmm. So they were like, we got laughed out last time. Let's make sure, let's teach these people that we mean business. Let's start a fight. It would seem to me, now I have seen videos. If you look up Cody Johnston's video on like how to actually tell stories about Antifa, like in the news, which I highly recommend everyone does. If you haven't seen it, it's a few years old. But one of the things that he shows in that video is kind of a little shrimpy alt-right kid running up and pepper spraying a line of protesters. Now, he did that, it looked like in the video, so that they would attack him with their shields, so that he could then get video of himself being attacked by the violent Antifa. And there's a lot of these people are violence trolls. Do you think that was what the guy was trying to do, or did you think he was just legitimately scared when he
I
pepper
think he was
sprayed?
legitimately scared.
Mm-hmm. Hang on, you froze again.
Crap. Oh, you lost me again.
Yeah, you just said it legitimately scared. You're back.
Yeah, I think he looked to be like he's been there each week, and well, I mean, they've done so. There's been another week where like we had some like police problems where like they called the cops on a laser pointer that no one found. There was no laser pointer, and the cops like just strong-armed some of our protesters. Like, they were there within minutes and just demolished our protesters.
Yeah, with the intent. So they brought the cops in. The cops said, "Okay, let's rough up these."
Right. And so they arrested some folks. They hospitalized one girl, and and then they arrested her and tried to charge her with lynching, which I guess is like assaulting a police officer. I guess that's what. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
For those of you listening, by the way, if the cops ever put their hands on you, go limp. Do not do anything once they get their
I've
hands.
actually been
Yeah.
told that that could be considered a resisting arrest.
Really, going limp can be
Yeah. I
resisting
don't know if
arrest.
it makes different just jurisdictions where that's the case, but so we've had NLG.
Okay, talk to a lawyer.
Yeah, we've had National Lawyers Guild folks there. We've had green hats there every week.
That's
and that's
excellent.
the thing they said is don't go limp.
Don't go limp. Okay.
They said don't like flail, of course, but like, be there, like be able, like let them, take you. If you go limp, you're harder to carry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Because here's the thing. Like when I was arrested at Occupy Wall Street, I purposefully was ragdoll, not because I was trying to do like civil disobedience. I mean, I was doing civil disobedience.
It might be different depending on the jurisdiction. It might just be like a California thing. I don't know.
As opposed to a New York thing. It might be because we had legal observers. They never said anything about going limp. My point is, don't do anything that could be interpreted as attacking a police officer. Like flailing, natural reactions. I mean, Cecily McMillan, I just did a video about this. This was quite a few years ago, but she got grabbed and threw an arm back and like gave a police officer who had been the one to grab her. She gave him like a little black eye, and bam!
She didn't know that it was a cop.
She didn't know it was a cop. No, it was the cops were clearing Zuccotti Park, and he, according to her, grabbed her breast from behind, and so she threw back her arm, hit him in the eye, and which I would say, if he grabbed her breast, yeah, serves you right. For that, she was charged with assaulting a police officer and wound up being convicted of that by a jury that didn't really understand what was going on. And she could have served up to 7 years in federal penitentiary for that. Luckily, there was a lot of eyes on the trial and a big letter writing campaign, and the jury in the case actually wrote to the judge and the prosecutor saying she shouldn't be given any jail time at all. Like 9 members of the jury said that. And then they gave her 90 days, which was awful. But still, the point is that if you find yourself in, do not do anything that could possibly seem like you're trying to attack a police officer, because they will go after you for that. They'll go after you really hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So continue with your story here.
Yeah, so I take the guy down. We're, everything's going on, and then the smoke bomb happens, and seems like everything's kind of calmed down at this point. And then, there's, folks. I mean, yeah, there was punching coming from both sides. I can't just sit here and like act like, hey, it was just them kicking and punching. No,
yeah.
I mean, at that point, it was definitely like there were like random. I want to say that like the re-engagement started with like someone there from their side, like running up on people and punching and kicking, but I can't say for certain because there's just so much chaos going on around me.
Yeah, but I mean, it seems like they wanted the fight. They came there to begin with, so I wouldn't be surprised if they had been the ones to re-engage.
Right. My buddy got knocked down, and he was, he got some medical attention, and then like what you saw in the video, I go up and I see people trying to come at us. So I put my arms out, like I'm like, for me, it's football moves. I put my arms up like I'm blocking it, like I'm an offensive lineman and I'm blocking someone, and I'm pushing them back. And then some guy like gets like kicked into me or whatever happened. Like he gets like shoved into me somehow, and I'm like kind of falling backwards, and I'm reaching out, trying to like gain my balance. And that's when all of a sudden I get hit with a skateboard. Now, here's the thing. I thought it was a punch.
Oh geez. Well, every time hang on. Every time you said I thought it was a punch, and then you froze. So every time you talk about something cool, the stream slows down. So give us that one more time.
So I thought it was a punch, and then I'm gushing blood, right? And so like I fell back a little bit, but I didn't like fall over, and I'm like I didn't see it. I just felt it, right? And I'm like, I got knocked back, but I didn't get knocked down. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gushing blood. I better drop. So I dropped, and then I crawled out of the way. And then when I was out of harm's way, I got back up, and my friend from Black Bloc was yelling, hey, get this guy a medic. And he got all his friends over. Because, Black Bloc are also medics. That's what a lot of people don't realize. Like, they're there with medical gear to help people.
Yep.
And so he has friends in Bloc that are there to help. some of them are like, one of them was one of the folks that was there with them was an RN, and was there helping bandage my head up. But yeah, so I'm like, God, what kind of fist could possibly do that kind of damage to my head? I didn't even realize how bad it was. I just thought, all right, I got some blood coming.
Yeah.
And so
how bad are the injuries at this point? Have you seen a doctor, or are you just dealing with it from the
I
street
mean, this
medics?
thing is stitched up. So what like it's funny because I'm like, they were taking it real seriously, and I'm just sitting here like, I didn't get knocked out. I wasn't like, I'm like, what kind of pussy hits me in the head with a freaking skateboard and doesn't knock me out? I don't understand that. But anyway,
well, there's two issues there. One, he's a total pussy. We're going to assume this he sucker punched you with a skateboard, failed to knock you out when you weren't even fighting him. Total pussy, just kind of. And you can see in the video that you had, like, they went and came over the top with that board. Like, there were people in between you. This was not like you two did not square off. You didn't even know he was there.
Right.
And yeah, he hit you with that skateboard, and he hit you. What looks to me like he hit you in the hardest part of your skull. So like you kind of coming around here to the temple where it gets a little softer, but like right up here, like if you were headbutting, like that's where you would want to headbutt someone. Right. So that's part of why he didn't knock you out. But the other part of the reason he didn't knock you out is you're super tough and he's a wimp and a coward.
Hit it on a lot of things, so that's another part.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you've been doing the football thing.
Right, and I also, like, have a penchant for hitting my head on things for whatever reason. Anyways, so board hits me, and what's interesting is there's another view of the video that I saw, and at first, like, I thought someone had thrown something at me based on the video view. So actually, the line of events is, first I thought someone punched me. Then I'm sitting in the paramedics van. So after they bandaged me up, they call the paramedics. The paramedics get there, and I literally walked over there to their van with them, and they're looking at me. They didn't even, like, take the bandage off. They're like, asking me questions, and finally my fiance got there and picked me up. But
that's a good fiance.
Yeah, but so yeah, I love her. She's great. She's very supportive, and I was happy that she was able to get there and help me out. And then we went to the hospital. But so I get hit, and I'm thinking it's a fist, but then I'm getting a text message while I'm in the paramedics van from my mom, who I've been speaking to. She's an RN, so I was asking her about stitching things up and all that. And apparently my buddy who was there was talking to her, and she's like, Aaron says you got hit with a skateboard. And so I'm like, oh, and I'm telling the paramedics, I'm like, oh, so I thought it was a fist, but apparently it was a skateboard. So after that point, like, I get some video, and it looks to me from the angle that something got thrown at my head. You hear a thud, and you see this thing shoot up in the air. So that's one of the things you don't see in the video that I showed you. You see the guy actually hitting me.
You also hear it. It sounds nasty. It's like a sock sound.
From the other angle, something's flying in the air off my head and it flies up high, and it's like a piece of wood, and then it lands on the other side. So what I think happened was, I think his board broke on my head, and where like further evidence of this is, like, this is where the injury is, but like if you look closer, I know I'm getting kind of nasty here.
No, that's exactly what we've got here.
You see that? I don't know if you see. There's like a piece of
blood, and yeah,
and right in here, and it's like, I think what happened was the piece of the board that broke off hit me right there.
So it broke, then hit you on the head, then went flying. That makes sense. You've also, I'm noticing there's some swelling around your eye. Is that from another punch? Is that from a kick, or is that from the hit?
No, I think it's just swelling coming from here, because this is, the injury comes all the way down to, like, right above my eyebrow. Like, I think, like, I feel it right now. It ends, like, right around here, and then I think it's just pulling up with why can't I?
Well, you'll probably have something like a shiner under that when that starts to go down. Like, hopefully you'll avoid it, but it'll look cool. I got punched in the eye really hard in high school and got a black eye, and it was like that in the yearbook, my senior yearbook.
Oh, yikes! I actually, when I did Occupy, because I didn't do a whole lot at Occupy, but I did get involved at Occupy. Pasadena's not too far from me, and so we did Occupy the Rose Parade. And I showed up there with a shiner because I had been playing flag football. And flag football, by the way, is like way tougher than tackle football. I've
Mm-hmm.
learned. I don't know how many injuries I sustained in like 2 weeks of playing flag football. It was ridiculous.
It's because everybody's looking for the flags, and they're not paying as much
As
attention.
aggressive as they would if they had a helmet on.
Yeah, there's that too. So let me ask you something. All right. So first off, as far as like medical bills and stuff, are you setting up a GoFundMe or anything for this?
I haven't received my medical bills yet. I do have Medi-Cal, so I'm hoping that like makes it a little bit easier. But like,
Mhm.
I did speak to Block, and they have folks that might help me out.
I would recommend you do that and set that up immediately. I mean, freaking Andy No got $80,000 for getting hit with a milkshake and crying about it. You know, you actually took some serious damage.
Milkshake.
Yeah, he's got a milkshake. My retina detached or whatever the hell stupid shit he said. So with this one, like you actually got injured here, and you know there will probably be some bills there. So I would recommend don't wait for the bill. Get the GoFundMe up as soon as you can, and you know I'll share it under this video once it's up. Just send me the link.
Oh, you were asking about the actual injury itself. Like, so there's, you know, the other effects, and here's where the actual injury is. So there's when the doctor was doing work on me, I guess he had to pull together the layer of skin just above my skull and sew that together.
Hmm.
So I guess it went that deep. Like it actually went skull deep.
Whew.
And I guess that needed some like absorbent stitches. And he did. I don't know how. I think there were probably like at least 3 dozen stitches that he put in my head. Mm-hmm. So pretty big wound. So
did they x-ray your skull? Did they check for a concussion?
So the doctor said based on what he's seeing with me, he didn't feel the need to have that done, and he said he's more concerned about me getting the possibility of me getting cancer from a CT scan than he is from me actually having a concussion. So
well, then there you go. Yeah, I think probably a good thing about that was that because he hit you with a skateboard, the pressure of the blow is diffused. It takes about 5 pounds of pressure per square inch to break a nose bone. It takes about 15 pounds of pressure per square inch to crack a skull. Again, know that from martial arts. A board like that, because it strikes over a larger surface, is probably not going to, even if he swung it hard and even if he wasn't a total pussy, if you swung it hard, like because of the way that it is, it's just diffused. So it's not going to zero in on those 1 points. Your skull is really strong, you know, which I'm happy about because I don't want to get super injured here, or injured at all. But like, okay, so, you know, all of this going forward, you know, what's going on? You going to be back out there? You going to take a break? What's the plan going forward?
So I should mention that like after the Juneteenth event, I actually created a group on Facebook that started organizing the event called ABRA, which is Against Bigotry, Responding with Action. Mm-hmm. And check us out. We got a Instagram. We got a really awesome person who's running our Instagram that's gotten our Instagram following up to like well over 600 already in just a short span since Juneteenth. And
link will be in the description of this video, by the way.
Yeah, I'll find that and give that to you. And then also the Twitter, a little less so, but we still have a presence there. And so we've been having a lot of chats. The group's gone through a lot of different, different growing pains, but like we've got a core group that seems to be kind of running things right now. And like I've got an educator who's like kind of.
You froze again.
Okay.
So you've got an educator was the last thing you said.
We've got an educator who's like a social justice educator who her and her husband are probably more like, I mean, like I'm not interested in violence and I'm not interested in necessarily having events where there's like the potential for this shit to happen again. But, you know, it's even more so for them, you know, and so it's like, I think there are a lot of people. So there's a huge outpouring of support. And there are folks from all over LA who are like, hey, we're going to show up and we're going to help you guys out. And especially with this going on. And the thing is that I know that no matter what happens, there's going to be people over there counter protesting the Trumpers, and so it's either going to be 5 or it's going to be 50 or more. And so, like,
the more you can get, the less likely there is to be violence. By the way,
exactly. And so I just, like, to me, it's like I'm not going to be secure. Like, I've been security this whole time, right? And I've been the guy who's there, so I'm not going to play my normal role. But I also don't want to show a sign of weakness. And if they're going to be out there, which I think will be, it just there's been a discussion, right? Our group's kind of having this, like, well, a lot of people don't want to be out there, but then other people do. I think we'll have a group out there, and if they do go out there, I'll be out there, not to do my usual job, but to go out there and let the Nazis know that I'm not backing down.
Yeah. Now, do you plan, because I saw reported that 4 people were injured and no one on either side is pressing charges at this point. If the person who attacks you is identified, are you going to press charges?
Yeah. No. So I think that article was misleading. I think that article, I mean, as you can see what I'm talking about, like, it started with a guy pepper spraying us and me taking a defensive posture. So it clearly wasn't just, sure, there was mutual fighting. People were throwing swings on each side, but it started with assaulting us, you know?
Yeah.
And so the other side of the thing was, yeah, absolutely. I do think that my friend was already talking about filing police reports, you know, like on the kid who pepper sprayed him. I absolutely, if I find out the identity of this person, you know, I'm as radical as they come. And, you know, I think that, like, defunding the police for the most part and redirecting funds to other organizations is a great step in the right direction. I do envision a society where we, like, eventually have alternative systems, you know, so, like, abolition is something that is, you know, I mean, there's a bigger conversation to be had there, but that's something that I do in a way support. Right.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people are not aware of the history of police departments, like formalized police departments. They started in the South as slave-catching organizations, and in the North they were essentially mercenaries that were hired by business owners and
I understand, the
notoriously
South
corrupt.
Specifically, like, focused on preemptive, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like, so in the North they were focused on just, like, actual violent criminals. Whereas in the South, they were focused on, like, catching people on, I mean, because originally it was slave patrols, like you said, but that evolved to, like, all right, let's catch people for, like, drug use.
Yeah.
Or just, like,
which then, and then you see a continuity in it with stuff like the Ferguson Police Department, which still used dogs to torture, and this was admitted by the freaking Trump administration of all administrations. His DOJ, like, admitted that the Ferguson Police Department not only used dogs to torture like suspects and people they had apprehended, but exclusively used dogs on black people. And no one else, no white suspects that they had. They didn't torture them with the dogs. They only tortured the black ones with the dogs. So, you know, a fresh start, I think, defunding, and perhaps a fresh start and a new institution that doesn't have that history or that culture, I think is a huge step forward.
I mean, the Camden, New Jersey model is a great model, and it's had a huge success, right? You know, they got rid of the police force that was there and like rehired people that they felt, but, like, a lot of them, they just fired people and just completely, and just they wiped out the culture that was the problem, and the murder rate dropped. You know,
well, you know, and not to get too much into the weeds on that, because we can definitely get you on here and we'll talk philosophy or something. But your specific, so one more time, what's the name of the specific organization that you were out protesting with?
Yeah, it's ABRA, or Against Bigotry, Responding with Action. It's a group I started, but, you know, I'm an anarchist, so, like, I let other people take it over.
Cool. And what's the position, like? You know, right now
I'm losing you now.
Oh, okay. I'm back.
I lost you.
Yeah. So right now, you know, you've got a unique opportunity to tell people, you know, what's going on, what your group is doing there, and what's important. So why don't you tell me really quickly, just for everybody that's listening, you know, what is the most important thing about this activist organization, and what's the most important action that you guys are doing and will be doing into the future? Like, why is this important? Why should people care?
It's tough because we've been building the plane in midair, you know, so it's kind of hard to really, you know, zero in on things.
That's how it usually happens.
Yeah, I would say the you know, the name speaks for itself. Like, the whole idea came out of, like, hey, we've got a town that is, especially for Los Angeles, you know, because we're like a suburb just outside of Los Angeles. and actually part of the greater Los Angeles area. Um, we're a town that's like an oasis of racism, and it's something where it's like, and we're not the only one in this area either. You know, I mean, you know, you hear about like Lancaster, where like Robert Fuller was hanged. You know, but like we wanted to work on trying to find ways to eradicate the racism that has been long a part of our community, and it's. I mean, like each little community in this area has like a different history with racism. I grew up in Tujunga, and the racism there is overt. You know, I already told you some of the stories. There was a construction business that's still around that, like in the '60s, had a no N-word sign on their storefront. You know, the next town over is where I'm at now, called La Crescenta, and it's like kind of a like higher end kind of area, and it's got its own history where like literally the park down the way called CV Park in the 30s, the Bund used to have Nazi rallies there. You know, for those of you who don't know the Bund is like when Nazism was actually, when Hitler was still alive, the Bund was the group that the American Nazi Party.
Yeah, there's a great podcast called Behind the Bastards that goes into the history of the Bund in America. You should definitely look it up, by Robert Evans, another radical journalist who has been doing some great work up in Portland, I believe. So
the community had that history, and like in 2016, someone tried to erect a sign to commemorate Hindenburg Park. Well, Paul von Hindenburg was the guy who appointed Hitler chancellor, and it was to commemorate that history, and people were like, no, we're not having it. But the problem was the sign went up because they did it at like a kind of secret city council meeting. And so, you know, that's the history of this town. The next town over is called Glendale. That town was a sundown town up until the 1970s, just the beginning of the 1970s. You know, for again, sundown, we're using a lot of terms that people might not be familiar with, but sundown town is literally like there was a curfew for black people being in the city.
Yeah, you're not allowed in the city after dark, or the cops or vigilantes will mess you up.
Yep.
It's just disgusting.
That's the whole, and so like we want to raise awareness of the history. We want to do things like one of the things we've been talking about. We were talking before this about actually skipping this next Friday and going on Saturday to do a city like cleanup. We want to do like a feed the homeless event. We've talked about things like doing mutual aid for various people, especially like people of color in the community, and possibly like maybe funding people like getting security, like cameras, like Ring cameras, at their homes. You know, different things of that nature are kind of like what we're aiming at. We haven't 100% settled on things. We're also going to leaflet the city with, you know, literature about like what kind of hate groups are in the area.
What to look out for, maybe send them like because honestly, most people, like normies, they don't have any idea about any of this. Like the people that I was talking to, the Trump supporters, they didn't understand there were Nazis there. They didn't believe that there were Nazis there. And like, even like, I think even after seeing this, they refuse to believe that there are Nazis in their ranks that are being protected by other people, either through ignorance or just through, you know, their brains getting rotted by tribalism.
And some of them don't care, you know? I mean, that first week we were out there, there was a lady who was like, one person pulled up a Confederate flag in California, you know, and then right in front of her, this woman who, I think her like boyfriend is like a big time QAnon conspiracy theorist. And like, I know a few people that know her and are like, yeah, she went off the deep end when she started dating this guy. And like, she threw up a Nazi salute.
Like the full on. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is horrifying and disgusting. But, you know, it's really good to know that you guys are out there doing God's work, because that's really what you're doing, coming from a Buddhist. Yeah, you all are. Yeah, well, it's okay. You can, you know, the thing is that
I'll take it. I'm not anti-religion, so.
Yeah, absolutely. My point being is that, you know, what you guys are doing is you are working hard to promote a culture of peace and a culture of acceptance, and to combat these forces that seek to drive people apart, that seek to pit this person against that person, this city against that city, this ethnicity against that ethnicity. And it honestly is, in both the secular and religious sense of the word, I believe, God's work. So, yeah. Dude, please do keep doing that. Keep me abreast of this. It's great to talk to you. And did you want to plug anything before plugging?
Yeah, I'll just say, I mean, granted, things are evolving and this and that, but I think this is so important right now. And I mean, so let me be clear. I want to spend 90% of my time on more constructive things. Yeah. Like, I don't think getting my head bashed in with a skateboard is a constructive thing.
Good for it's good. It's good because it shows people what's going on down there, and it draws attention to this problem that you have, for instance, with a bunch of freaking neo-Nazi gangs.
Right.
But at the same time, you need to be in the communities, making the world a better place and building community. And I really feel that is really important steps for the left to take. Put your money where your mouth is.
And that's the point I want to make. Look, so we've went through some evolutions. And so it started with us being there on Juneteenth, and then it turned into like a group really well-intentioned, but maybe like coming from a place of naivety, went and said, hey, we're going to arrange this whole thing where we have you guys, we go and go to the other side and talk to the Trump supporters. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's just not the setting for that. Like, there's a guy who just reached out to me who was literally in my face yesterday, who was like commenting on my Instagram post where I'm lifting weights. And he's like, you seem like a good guy. Why do you hate our country? And I'm like, you know what though? He's reaching out to me. He he added me on Instagram, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have a conversation with this guy. It's probably not going to go anywhere, but I'm willing to talk. Yeah. But the setting is not when you're in my face.
Mm-hmm. The setting is later on when, there's not cameras around and people have a chance to like actually connect at a human level.
And when there's not neo-Nazis around, because those guys are just going to pretend like they're, they're serious. But they're, again, like the second you turn your back, they're going to punch you.
Absolutely. Because, these people are liars. There's a great quote by Sartre about fascists and neo-Nazis, and essentially that you should never believe that they are unaware of the ridiculousness of the things that they say. They're amusing themselves. They use conversation like a weapon, and they use lies as a weapon. And a lot of people just don't understand that. So definitely check out that Sartre quote.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing that one. I forgot who it was, but that sounds very familiar to me now. So I think that it's important to have conversations. I think that we are really fractured as a country at this point, and I do think there needs to be a way to have that conversation, but like there's a time and a place for it. And so like when people are going to these protests, which we've had a lot of, and there are different cities where there's presence of Trump supporters on one side, BLM folks on another side. It's not the time and place for that, and I just think there are a few groups that are trying to do that, and I don't think it's productive, and that's just what we found in our action. But I also don't think we should spend 90% of our time on these actions. I think that like there are way more constructive things to do. Like I said, I mean, and even with like my Block friends are like, hey, I spend a lot of time going to Skid Row feeding the homeless. Mm-hmm. And like that's what we should be doing, and that's going to disproportionately affect people of color because unfortunately it's people of color who are disproportionately on Skid Row. Yeah. Whatever you can do to help feed and house the homeless and fix the economic situation that is absolutely dire for people in this country right now, I think is really important. But it's also important to have a presence. It's important for us to put enough effort into this to continue to dominate these numbers. Because again, like I said, it's either going to be 5 of us out there or there's going to be 50 of us out there. Yeah.
And what people don't seem to realize about this is you want to look at because there's a tendency in these stories to both sides it, and to try to draw an equivalency between Antifa and these neo-Nazi groups. First off, Antifa has never killed a single person, not one in the entire time in the United States that they have been active. And two,
I was going to say they've killed some ISIS in Rojava, and they've killed some
yeah,
they've killed some fascists in Franco, and Francisco Franco's fascists, but
yeah. Well, at that point, I think you've ascended a bit beyond Antifa when you're fighting it in Syria with a PKK YPG. Right. But Antifa in the United States has never killed a single person. Meanwhile, literally 100% of the politically motivated violence in 2018 was coming from the right wing. And that is fascists and sovereign citizens.
38 people were killed by by white supremacist groups in 2019 alone.
Yeah, and their murders have gone up every year since Trump has taken office because he has emboldened them. And these people, they are cowards at heart. And so if they do see a large response, and they're testing their power when they do this. So if enough people can get out there and show them, no, we're not going to put up with this, you won't have to fight. But the thing is that you need those numbers. You need them to realize that this is not the time for their revolution, because they won't wait for a revolution. What they will do is the worst of them will engage in terrorism. Like the Tarrant guy in Christchurch, like the El Paso shooter, like the Garlic Festival shooter, like the guy in New York that killed that black gentleman with the sword, like the guy in Portland that killed those two men on the train. One of them was a veteran. All of this
and the Boogaloo Boys, the Boogaloo Boys that have been showing up to the protests that killed cops and shot at two protesters who were trying to take down a Christopher Columbus statue.
Yeah.
Or the one that killed Garrett Foster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the murder of Garrett Foster, that was really awful to watch and to see happen. My point is, these are bullies, and bullies are ultimately afraid, and you deal with a bully by showing them force. You don't ignore them, because guess what? They just bully you more. But you show them force, you show them that you will not be pushed around, and they will fold. They always fold.
And that's been our experience. I hated to see, I think 2 weeks ago or something like that. I forget where it was, but I'm sure you saw that video of like Trump supporters beating the crap out of BLM supporters and the cops just standing by watching in like a marsh somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's like that right there, I guarantee you that didn't help the cause. I guarantee you, just because they got that on film and people saw, that did not help the cause. So like we took an aggressive posture. I didn't throw a single punch. And I had activists there standing with me, like called me later. They're like, dude, your defense is on point.
Yeah.
Because I didn't throw a single punch and I was pushing people back, but at the same time, like I was showing that I'm not going to step down.
You're not going to step down. You're not going to be intimidated by this.
Yeah. And I had, there were other folks in our group that were the same way. And I think that, they see that and they're like, okay, this isn't just something where we can advance on them.
Yeah. Now, what a lot of people don't know about the cops, by the way, and I should mention this because a friend of mine got assaulted at Charlottesville at that Unite the Right. He got attacked by those neo-Nazis that were dressed like freaking George Michael Bluth. Yeah, and it's hilarious. But they put him in the hospital, him and his girlfriend at the time. But like the thing is that he was like, man, the cops didn't do anything. When there are two groups fighting. The cops, I don't know the exact number, but the cops will not do anything unless they outnumber the other force by a significant margin. If there are more people on one side or the other in a fight and there are fewer cops, the cops will stand there and do nothing. So you cannot rely on the police to protect you from these people. You got to protect yourself.
Right. So actually, that brings up some experience here. So a couple weeks, I actually wasn't there because I caught COVID. And I was recovering from that.
Glad to see you recovered.
Yeah, and so I was watching from home as like, basically like, they called the cops on a laser that didn't exist, and the cops showed up in force immediately, right? And like there was no confrontation at that point. They just didn't like the fact that we were over there.
Well, I hate to say it, but some of those who work forces are the same that burn crosses.
I've been trying to get that chant going every time I get out there. So, well, fast forward a couple weeks, we're out there, and there's a big-ass brawl. Cops take 40 minutes after we called them to show up. And after the fighting finally finished. And guess what? There was one arrest. You know who they arrested? A guy that they had falsely claimed had come with a gun. It was a guy from, so one of our people, her boyfriend was driving around and kind of antagonizing them, and then ends up there's a parking lot right behind them. And I wasn't there for this. I was at the hospital at the time, but like I hear about it. I guess he drove through the parking lot, and they started like just damaging his car, and like throwing rocks at it, and like trying to tip it over, and all sorts of crap. And then they called the cops on him, saying he had a gun, and the cops arrested him. Cops noticed that they checked his car and found that he didn't have a gun, so they let him go. Mm-hmm. But I think finally that like started to get them the point, like, oh, these guys that are supposedly supporting us, that are back the blue / Trump, they're not actually following along.
Yeah, no, they're certainly not. I should point this out also, at least in my experience with cops, it usually breaks down into like 1/3. One third of the people who are cops are genuine good cops who like who got into it because they want to help their community. 1/3 they just want to get through the day, and this is their job, and they're gonna do what they've got. And 1/3 tend to be actively malicious. And it can be dangerous depending upon where you got, but also, there are some amazing cops. Captain Ray Lewis was arrested with us at Occupy Wall Street. He's one of my great friends. He's a wonderful guy, and there's a number of cops who have been helpful. So don't rule them out. Just don't depend on them.
Yeah. No, the first week, the Juneteenth week, the first week I was out there, it was like me and my buddy were like, hey, we're going to coordinate with you guys. I'm going to make sure shit stays peaceful. But, we need to support each other. And, like, these were great cops. I had a cop that literally sat there and talked to me, and I'm sitting there, like, I used to coach a cop, and I had another cop another guy who was getting into the sheriff's. I helped him get into the sheriff's department, helped him improve his cardiovascular fitness. And he got through the sheriff's department, and we went to his graduation, and on the way back, this person asked me, why aren't you a cop? I'm like, well, let me start. Like, first of all, I don't agree with the laws that you guys have to enforce. But second of all, like, I know what happens to good cops. And I'm expecting her to tell me, she's like, yeah, I have a story about that. And I'm like, okay, I'm expecting her to tell me this story where it went the other way. And like, this guy actually got rewarded. No, the guy that she knew got kicked out of the force. Like, it was like a whistleblower kind of thing. Gets kicked out of the force, gets like completely blackballed. Had to move out of state, all sorts of things. And I'm like, I told the cop that was there, because she's like, not all of us are bad. And I told her, I'm like, look, I understand that, but here's what this person, that I personally know told me. Now, when you're a cop and you know that if you tell on your fellow cops because of the thin blue line, you're going to get retaliation.
And you could get killed.
Yeah.
Honestly, they put you in a dangerous...
Yeah, what does that like how is that okay? How is that something like that's the problem, right? Like, what's the answer to that problem?
Absolutely.
If not fund, if not, starting from the ground up.
All right. Yeah, no, I totally get you on this, and we should have you back on the program again sometime soon, and we'll talk cop abolition and stuff. In the meantime, we're going to wrap up this episode of Insurrection, the first episode of Insurrection since 2014, thanks to Erik Boyd. And the name of your organization one more time?
Again, it's ABRA, which stands for Against Bigotry, Responding with Action. Right now, we're a small organization, and we would love to eventually, like, as we get our tactics more tightened down, we'd love to reach out to other people who want to start chapters in their own communities. Right now, we're ABRA of the Foothills, and we'd love to get other communities.
Title.
Thank you. Yeah, we'd love to get other communities that need the same kind of action.
Yeah. So ABRA, Against Bigotry, Responding with Action.
Absolutely.
And you guys are ABRA of the Foothills. So everybody who's listening to this, get out there, do something to help ABRA, and keep an eye out for Erik's GoFundMe, because I know he's going to have some medical bills, and we should all help cover that. I will be sending you some money as well, particularly in the age of COVID. So solidarity, and
if you're in LA on a Friday, come out here and support us at our protests, and maybe support some of our other actions as well.
Absolutely. So this is Brenton Lengel of Insurrection, signing off.